Welcome to my channel, Ending Summer with Ralph. This channel will cover parts of my life, the media I watched growing up as a baby boomer,
Ralph.
Things like my favorite music, television shows, films, older home entertainment technology, the cars, my old job, and even throw in some film robots. In this episode, we are going to talk about the 1942 Republic Movie Studio serial called Spy Smasher. And stick around as I tell you how Spy Smasher changed my life. Spy Smasher set itself apart from most film serials, especially ones that were made after 1942, in that, while its story sounds preposterous, there are many excellent action scenes, which includes the death of some of the good guys.
The good guys die?
Yep, quite a few, Robo. You'd be surprised at the carnage in this serial that otherwise has kid-friendly written all over it.
Those were tough times.
Yes, they were, Robo. And with no ill effects afterwards besides a callous face in real life for Larry Fine. However, in Spy Smasher, it sometimes means curtains.
Curtains?
Curtains meaning you're dead, to draw the final curtain. Plus there are some cool high-tech mini-sub, picture radio, television, ray guns, and even a secret weapon airplane.
Wow.
Unlike many comic book serials with no good guys getting bumped off, we get a dark kind of story where you never know who's going to get out of this serial alive. One IMDb reviewer, which if you haven't been to that website, it's an awesome movie website. One reviewer put in the trivia that this serial has a body count of 23. That may set the tone for Spy Smasher. So it's more of a serious type of comic book. Now, Spy Smasher was introduced in the comic books in 1940 under Fawcett Comics, in Whiz Comics number 2, which is really the first issue because the number 1 issue was called a Ashcan edition, which was printed in black and white and used for trademark purposes. It went straight to the Ashcan. The Fawcett Comics are named after the founder, Wilford Fawcett, who besides being a publisher was a sports shooter who competed in the Olympics. You could call him Deadeye like Ralphie. Some of the other characters, comic characters that Fawcett Comics had, the most famous is Captain Marvel. Some of the other ones they had that I found interesting besides Spy Smasher and Captain Marvel is they had a Bullet Man, and they had some special powers with their helmet, and they could blow up tanks with it and stuff and just smash through people like a bullet, big bullet, human-sized bullet. And they could fly around and stuff. So they had a lot to do with our victory in World War II, I'm sure. Now, Spy Smasher, the serial, really reflected the tone of the comic books because it seems like each Spy Smasher comic book story, there was somebody dead, which not very often happens in comic books, especially every episode. So, like, there's one episode in the comic books where there's this mad scientist called Dr. Goebbels. Sounds a lot like Dr. Goebbels.
Dr.
He looks like
Gloobles.
something out of EC 1950s horror comic book that Congress freaked out over. Really good artwork there. He had a tornado weapon gun, and he shot it through a army soldier. It blew a hole in his chest. They go, "Oh, that's not a gunshot wound. That's something bigger." He got a big hole in his chest. He's dead. They carried that tone into the Republic serial. So that's why there's so many dead people, 23, like I said, in IMDb. Now, as far as the movie side of this goes, this was made by Republic Pictures, and that's an American movie production distribution corporation. It was in operation between 1935 to 1967. They were based in Los Angeles. They're best known for specializing in westerns, serials, and B films like film noir, emphasizing mystery and action. Now, if you look at the beginning of this, I play a little bit of sound. you've got Beethoven's Fifth starting, and you have the Morse code for V down on the bottom. On 14 January 1941, Victor de Vallier, former Belgian Minister of Justice and director of the Belgian-French language broadcasts on the BBC, suggested in a broadcast that Belgians use a V for victory and use it as a rallying emblem during the Second World War. So in a BBC broadcast, de la Valliere said that the occupier, by seeing this sign, always the same, infinitely repeated, would understand that he is surrounded, encircled by an immense crowd of citizens eagerly awaiting his first moment of weakness, watching for his first failure. So within weeks of that, V's started popping up all over the walls throughout Belgium, the Netherlands, and northern France. And these were all occupied areas by the Nazis at that time. Now, buoyed by the success of this, the BBC started the V for Victory campaign, for which they put in charge Douglas Ritchie, posing as Colonel Britton. And he suggested an audible V using its Morse code rhythm, 3 dots and a dash. And since that kind of ties in with Beethoven's Fifth, they have the same rhythm, the BBC used this as its call sign in its foreign language programs to occupied Europe for the rest of the war.
You wear no uniforms, and your weapons are different from ours. But they're not less deadly. The fact that you wear no uniforms is your strength. The Nazi official and the German soldier don't know you, but they fear you. The knight is your friend. The V is your sign.
So that's pretty cool. So you have that to start with in Spy Smasher. Now, Robo, did you know that this and this actually mean two different things? That's right. There are two different meanings to this, so be careful the way you use it, especially if you're in England or Australia, because somebody might punch you in the face. This is a profanity, kind of like the middle finger salute. This is the V for victory. Now, Churchill, if you see in his pictures, sometimes he's doing this and sometimes he's doing this. At first, he didn't know that this was an insult, even though it's an English slur. You know, maybe that was more of the lower class, and maybe he wasn't exposed to the street as much. I guess he got the word eventually, because he did this more often after that. But anyway, that's the way Spy Smasher starts out. Now, Paramount had a serial that came out after Spy Smasher called The Secret Code, and you'll find that Beethoven's Fifth is also used in that. Pretty much Beethoven's Fifth is most commonly associated with the BBC. They especially used it during the D-Day invasion of Normandy, and you'll see that in the film The Longest Day. They'll do that. They get that music in the background playing, because they would precede that song with that this was important for the French underground. So let's go through the characters.
Woo!
To start with, we got Kane Richmond as Spy Smasher, Marguerite Chapman as Eve Corby, Sam Flynn as Admiral Corby, Hans Schum as The Mask,
He looks mean.
and Tristram Coffin as Drake. And there's a bunch of other characters. We'll get into the ones that are notable there. So Kane Richmond, who plays Spy Smasher, he retired from films in 1948 and became a successful owner of a garment store selling furs during the 50s and 60s. And then he was also a film booker before becoming a star of Republic serials. He was a supporting player during the 30s and 40s in standard Hollywood films and rugged star of B-adventure two-reelers, features, and cliffhangers. His first listing was in a short film boxing subject called The Leather Pushers. And he did all the fight scenes in the serial himself, and he suffered a broken nose twice and a broken ankle as a result. Probably besides Spy Smasher, which is probably his best known, he was also in 3 shadow films released in 1946. So he actually played the Shadow. And he was in some other serials. He was in one of the first Flash Gordon ones, enemy pilot kind of guy. He was also in a serial called Brick Bradford, which is about an adventurer who travels to the moon to stop a madman from getting hold of the Interceptor Raid, a weapon that could destroy the Earth. Sounds like Star Wars. And he actually played a Ralph in a Charlie Chan film called Murder Over New York, which is where I was born.
Yay!
And moving on to the other actors, got Marguerite Chapman. She's probably the most famous of all the actors in this serial. She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for TV. I was looking at her bio. You know, she was in a lot of generic stuff, a lot of Quinn Martin production stuff in the 60s and 70s. I have a picture of her last credited film role on IMDb, which was in Barnaby Jones, which is a show I used to watch as a kid because it was the only thing on TV. As far as her starring roles, she was in a film that I liked a lot called The Amazing Transparent Man. It's about this escaped convict who gets exposed to a invisible man treatment, and then he's forced to steal nuclear reactive material from a bank vault. It's a pretty cool movie. It's low budget. It was filmed back-to-back in 2 weeks total time with Beyond the Time Barrier, another low-budget film I really enjoyed and could watch non-riff. This one, Amazing Transparent Man, was riffed on Season 6 of Mystery Science Theater 3000. And she must have one of the longest first names of Hollywood actress I've ever seen.
Marguerite.
Now, Sam Flint plays the Admiral. He lived a long time and well into his 90s. Appeared in almost 400 films and TV shows. But he's got a pretty good career. The next one we get into is The Mask, played by Hans Schum. And he's described on IMDb.com as a Nazi swine par excellence. That must be really good. And he was born in Germany. He was in about 100 films, mostly as a bad guy heavy. He kind of reminds me, if you remember Indiana Jones, the first one, of that German guy who was about to kill Indy, and then he got chopped up by the propeller. Kind of reminds me of him. The last main star of this listed is Tristram Coffin. And he plays one of the main henchmen, Drake. He played good guys and bad guys. He was in King of the Rocket Men, where he was the Rocket Man. And some of you may recognize him as the Lone Ranger's brother, who gets killed in the first episode. So that's pretty cool. Now, the other actors who are listed here that are notable, we have Rudolf Anders. He's only in the first episode. He plays a German officer in the dungeon where they're whipping Spy Smasher. He always played Germans, so he played a lot of Nazis during World War II, and even afterwards. He was in called Frankenstein 1970 with Boris Karloff. One of his last roles was in the TV show Garrison's Gorillas, which, if you've never seen that, that's kind of like Mission Impossible and the A-Team in World War II. Played a field marshal, which is pretty good. Can't get much higher than that. Now, one other notable person here is Tom London. He's one of the mass henchmen, one of the more minor ones, not like Tristram. He is in the Guinness Book of World Records for appearing in the most films of any actor. So he, according to Wikipedia, he's been in over 2,000 different productions. It's been disputed, but they say he was in The Great Train Robbery. Now it's time for, his name is Ralph, man. Did Spy Smasher have any Ralphs in its film crew or actors? And the answer is yes. We have one Ralph in Spy Smasher, Ralph Oberg, who lived from 1899 to 1961, and he was a construction foreman on Spy Smasher. He has 49 credits on IMDb as an art director. Hey, Ralph. So we got the cast out of the way. One thing I like about Spy Smasher, besides the awesome fights, they're very intense, but besides the fights, they have some cool secret gadgets in this. If you follow the comic book, and I encourage you to, because most of the Spy Smasher comics are available online for free at comicbooksplus.com. Since they're all in public domain, people have been nice enough to scan those and put them on the internet. So check that out for sure. But I was reading the Spy Smasher comics and comparing it to this serial. In the comic books, Spy Smasher has a plane that can levitate, go under the water, is completely silent, no propeller, no jet. So it must have used some kind of magnetic stuff to it. It can make its own cloud and float around and, like camouflage. And so he uses that a lot in the comic books, and why wouldn't you? There's that mini sub. Looks like a mini sub in this thing looks bigger inside than a Trident sub has room.
Sure does.
You got your 3-man mini sub there with the spacious quarters. There's his TV. He's getting ready to go on and puts his mask on.
Spy Smasher trivia.
Well, Robo, it's time for our first trivia question. So, Robo, take it away.
In the comic book, what is the name of Spy Smasher's vehicle? Is it A, the Smasher rocket, B, the gyro sub, C, the stealth ship, or D, the V-plane?
The answer is the gyro sub. But in the movie, it's the Mask who has the fancy plane that goes up and down. I didn't see it go in the water, but he also has a mini sub, so he doesn't need the plane to go in the water, the Mask. But the Spy Smasher, he just has a regular plane.
More trivia.
Some other trivia about this show compared to the comic book is the Mask was the longest running villain that Spy Smasher had. He was pretty resilient, but something went wrong one day when Mask put his brainograph machine on Spy Smasher and brainwashed him to kill. Well, the result of that was Spy Smasher killed the Mask.
Uh-oh.
So talk about a plan going bad. And then it wasn't even a finale, so the Mask got really kicked to the curb here. By the time this was released, this film in 1942, the Mask had already been dead for almost a year because he died in the March 31st, 1941 issue of Whiz Comics. So that's pretty wild. Okay, Robo, it's time for another trivia question.
What was the Mask's plane called? Is it the Masked Marauder, the Bat Plane, the Pyramid Bomber, or it's too classified to say?
There's more work to be done. You saw the bat plane the Masked men used tonight?
Yes. It rose straight into the stratosphere. That plane may give us a lot of trouble.
Admiral, we've got to capture that plane. I figured out a way to do it, providing you...
The answer is the Bat Plane. Yeah, no wonder Fawcett Comics got sued so much by DC. Some other differences between this and the comic book is that Spy Smasher has a twin brother. In the comic books, he does not. Spy Smasher doesn't have a special plane in the film, which is a shame. But I guess that blew up the budget if they would have given both fancy planes, right? And comparing the comics to the serial, now that whipping scene, that is has been credited as one of the iconic, one of the top 100 iconic whipping scenes in movies someone wrote. And if you look at it, they don't hit him with the whip. It's implied, which I thought was pretty good. You know, it's kind of kids friendly. Look at that whipping scene. That is rich. Other Spy Smasher references I've seen.
Donald F. Glut,
who's a Hollywood writer. He's probably most famous for the novelization of The Empire Strikes Back. But he started off as a teenager doing home movies, and he ended up getting some Hollywood types involved with it. It's pretty cool that a teenager can make these home movies. He did a Spy Smasher tribute. Now, I've altered this film so I don't get it taken down by YouTube, but it won't look like that if you get to watch this. So where can we watch this film serial now? Well, I got my set online seller over 10 years ago, as a matter of fact. That was basically the only way I could get access to this. It wasn't on YouTube or anything. So that's one way. But since that time, I bought this around 2007. It is available on Amazon Prime up till the start of this year, but now it costs $1.99, which is a shame because you only get it for 2 days to watch it, and it's over 3 hours long if you watch it in its entirety with the credits and ending sequences. That's the way you want to watch it. People put it on YouTube since it is in the public domain, and there's actually a lot of different people have posted it.
Make it a rainy day afternoon.
Now it's time for Ralph's predictions of the future. So I predict, looking to the future, we are all going to have a gyro sub in the future. That's my prediction. 2021, book it. I don't know when it'll happen, but that's going to happen. So let's talk about Spice Smasher's legacy. What do modern viewers think of this? So on IMDb, this has a rating of 6.9 out of 10 with 310 votes in. It has 19 user reviews, so somebody went out of their way to write a review about this. So that took some time. So that indicates, a type of fan base out there. Now I give it a 10 out of 10 for a movie serial. It's not the best one, but I think it's pretty good. My favorites are like Flash Gordon. I really like that one. I like all of the serials that are made fun of by like Mystery Science Theater. So that would be, the Rocket Man and the Bela Lugosi one, the Phantom Creeps. So I love that stuff. And to give you a comparison, the one that was a lot like Spy Smasher that came out later that year from Columbia Movie Studio, The Secret Code. Now that's rated much higher, 7.6, but that's only out of 61 votes and it only has 2 user reviews. So if there were more people rating it, it would probably be much lower. I mentioned my favorite, the gold standard, I think, is the original Flash Gordon serial. That has a rating of 7.0 with 2,300 votes in, and it has 44 written reviews. So you can see that that's the one to do it. And now it's the time you've all been waiting for. How Spy Smasher changed my life. My recent history is I was working overseas as a technician. After that job ended, I decided to use my GI Bill, veteran, and I went to college for communication and digital media. After graduating, so this time I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. One of the things was writing reviews on IMDb. I do have a love of older movies and trivia and stuff, and I have kind of a eclectic taste. You see that as my channel goes on longer. I'm trying to pick up things that are unique and also trying to relate them to my personal experience, because part of me making this channel is to set up some kind of history for my relatives in the future to figure out what kind of a person I was, and not just an obituary in a newspaper and some old photographs, if they ever even get to see the photographs. So this is on mass media, so hopefully my relatives in the future, maybe 20, 50, 100 years from now, will see me. With Spy Smasher, while I was working overseas, I worked overseas for 10 years, so I was out of America a long time. And I was kind of out of touch with things like cable and stuff, so I was watching a lot of things on YouTube. Since it was from America, something better. So I watched a lot of stuff on YouTube, especially a lot of Mystery Science Theater 3000. That really cracked me up. I think I watched every episode, and then to kind of repay the people who put stuff on the YouTube, I wanted to put something myself. So I put this copy of Spy Smasher on YouTube, since it's in the public domain, and it wasn't available anywhere other than buying it from some private collector. And What happened was, in 2007, I posted that on there and then forgot about it. In this midlife crisis I'm having, trying to find a job and something to do, I saw that my post of the Spy Smasher serial had over 200,000 views. So that made the light bulb go off in my head. I should do a channel about media that I like, that's kind of eclectic, and talk about it since people seem to be interested in it. So thank you, Spy Smasher. I salute you. You changed my life. And folks, if you're looking for some old stuff to watch that's fun with excellent action scenes and some pretty nifty gadgets, please do check out Spy Smasher. Stick around with me. Next video, we're going to talk about a subject that more people are familiar with, and that is Star Wars.
Yay!
Thanks, y'all. See you next time. Bye, Spy Smasher.
Take care, everybody. See you next time.
Spy Smasher.